So the second reading for today comes from the book of Romans, chapter 12, verses 1 through 2. And I will read that for you. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all he has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind he will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. So I'm going to use this, if that's cool. Good morning, everybody. How you guys doing? That sounds like you're doing great, yeah. So I'm going to come out from over here. All right, so I want to talk about Urban Plunge, and then I'm going to talk about some other things. And of course, I have my notes on my phone because that's how I do things. All right, so I want to tell us first, just so you guys know, the different churches that are here. So if you look around there, we're over 80 students that sit up, and they are from Pine Island Presbyterian, Westminster Presbyterian here in Portage, Spring Lake Presbyterian, Sturgis Presbyterian. I knew that was coming. Shocker. Lansing First Presbyterian, Eastminster Presbyterian, and East Lansing. Kalamazoo First, obviously. Brooklyn Presbyterian, Jackson Presbyterian. Three Rivers Presbyterian, Westlake Presbyterian, and Marysol First Presbyterian. So, obviously, we had a lot of fun this weekend, and you were probably hearing that if you're paying attention. So, we had a lot of things that we were doing, a lot of crazy things that went on. We had a lot of times doing things like, I'm just going to read them, popsicle, llamas, moose, and alpaca, which is always a good time, sardines all over the church, scaring each other all over the church, going to the YMCA, and swimming and games. An amazing round of Simon Says. That was just great. A lot of standing on chairs and yelling. That's why I've lost my voice. We can't forget fake birthdays. We had a lot of fun with fake birthdays. And also a lack of sleep, which was great. Which is absolutely wonderful. So speaking really quickly before you guys get too settled, speaking of one of my favorite words in the whole world, which is popsicle. Hey, Urban Plunge! Are you ready? To pop! Popsicle!
My hands are hot, my feet are low, and this is how I popsicle!
So, if you weren't here, sorry you missed that. But we also did a lot of hard work. So Saturday was filled with just a lot of work. We serviced, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different agencies with the 88 students that we had here. We sent a group to the YWCA where they helped clean. They worked in the Children's Center of the YWCA, so they helped clean and organize. We also sent a group to the Free Store, and the Free Store gives out free things to people who are in need. We also helped organize there. We sent a group way out to the Nature Center, and they worked. They worked, dug gravel pits and things like that. We sent groups to the Peace House, where they also helped rake and do things outside for the Peace House. The Linus Project, we made a bunch of blankets that we're going to send to the Linus Project, and they give blankets to people who basically just need a smile. And so they make these blankets for shut-ins and for people who are dealing with terminal illnesses and things like that. We went over to the Kalamazoo Civic Theater, and we helped paint the set for this show coming up called Mary Poppins that maybe you should come see, but I'm kind of in it, but never mind. We also went to the Douglas Community Association and helped rake, and a lot of raking. I guess that's what people want in November. So there's a lot of raking that was done. The Hospitality House, which was a good time. Salvation Army, where they have a big coat drive coming up, and so we helped organize all the coats. And then Friendship Village, where our groups played games with the residents, and also I think did some raking as well. So those were the things that we did. It was a good time. We had a lot of fun. It was fun to see kids from all over our presbytery come and converge on Kalamazoo and converge on First Presbyterian Church. The theme this weekend was Sanctuary in the City. And I totally just stole that from Seth and from all the stuff that I mean, every time I walk into this church, I see Sanctuary in the City, Sanctuary in the City. And I feel that really describes who First Presbyterian Church is trying to be, and also a good description of what it means for our youth to be that sanctuary. There was a verse in the song, the first song that we sang, that said something. I'm going to say it so I don't do it wrong. It says, "Not in the dark of buildings confining, not in some heaven light years away. Here in this place, the new light is shining." And it made me think, because we had a lot of fun in this dark building, because this building gets really dark at night. I don't know if you knew that, like scary dark at night. But while we were doing that on Friday night and on Saturday during the day, we were that light that was going out into the city. And so it was that great dichotomy of playing in the dark and lots of screaming, and yelling and running around. But so the idea of playing in the dark, but then we realized that we don't want to be this building that's just dead, right? We don't want to be this dead building, this dead dark building. If you ever come here by yourself in the middle of the night, you'll realize like this place seems like just shut down, right? Because that's what buildings do at night. But then you know that when you come here on a Sunday, or you come here on a Wednesday night, or a Thursday morning, or a Thursday evening, this place is alive. And that's our goal. And so that's why we do crazy things. You might wonder why we do crazy things with the youth, like Popsico, and moose and llamas and alpaca, whatever that is. We do those things because we realize that we're alive, and that God wants us to be alive, and that Jesus has called us to be alive, and Jesus has called us to be the light. And if you've ever seen light, you've all seen light before, right? Like, you know how like light sometimes is so blinding that you can barely see anything? Like, that's the goal. When I think of the light of Christ, I sometimes think of a cat. You know those videos where like you see the cat like chasing the light? You guys have all watched YouTube, right? You guys on YouTube? Yeah. So if you ever search cat videos on YouTube, you'll see these videos of these cats like chasing the light. And it's the funniest thing, I mean, it's so silly, but it's so funny. And I think of that can be like Christ's light. Christ's light should not be something that is hidden and something that is confined and refined and put away and only for the select few. It's supposed to be something that entices us. That like when we see that light sparkle, we go, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? The group here knows that that's me in my life. If anything sparkly or shiny, I will totally lose focus and focus on that. But I feel like that's what Christ's light should be for us. No matter what's going on in our life, and no matter what we're doing, we should lose focus on those things and refocus onto the light of Christ. And that's our goal for our students, and that's what we're trying to do. I want to tell a real quick story from the Bible, and you've probably heard it. And it's called, I'm just going to read it. I don't need to tell you the title. So, Jesus replied with a story. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem down to Jericho, and he was attacked by bandits. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, and left him half dead beside the road. By chance, a priest came along. But when he saw the man lying there, he crossed to the other side of the road and passed him by. A temple assistant, or a Levite, walked over and looked at him lying there, but he also passed by on the other side. Then a despised Samaritan came along, and when he saw the man, he felt compassion for him. Going over to him, the Samaritan soothed his wounds with olive oil and wine, and bandaged them. Then he put the man on his own donkey and took him to an inn, where he took care of him. The next day he handed the innkeeper 2 silver coins, telling him, "Take care of this man. If this bill runs higher than this, I'll pay you the next time I'm here." Then Jesus asked the man, "Now which of these 3 would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandits?" The man replied, "The one who showed him mercy." Then Jesus said, "Yes, now go and do the same." Now, those words, "now go and do the same," to me are like the scariest words that Jesus ever says, right? Like Jesus never says, like if the person was like, "Which one was the neighbor?" And Jesus was like, Jesus said, "Which one's the neighbor?" And the person was like, "Oh, the Samaritan." And Jesus was like, "Good answer," and then just moved on. That'd be easy. But Jesus doesn't just say, "Oh, good answer, I'm proud of you." He says, "All right, you got that. Now go and do the same." That scares me, right? Because Jesus is telling all of us to go and do the same. Now, sometimes I want to do the same. So I just want to break down that story for you really quick. It's a story you've heard 1,000 times, but maybe I'll give a new spin to it. So the first person that walked by was who? The priest, right? And so we have to know the priest was going where? I just said it, so maybe you were listening. Jerusalem, and Jerusalem holds the temple, great. So the priest was going to the temple, right? That's a normal place for a priest to go. So if the priest is hustling to the temple, what do we know though about most priests? Don't answer that, let me just tell you, because that could go on for a while. So, the idea that the priest could not help the bandaged man, we always give the priest a hard time, right? That he sees the guy, he probably has compassion, but the priest knows something very important, that he has to stay clean for temple service, right? That he is not allowed to touch this blood, or that would make him unclean, and that he could not perform the duties in the temple, right? I'm not trying to give him slack, I'm just letting you know that that's a reality. So the priest decided, man, I cannot get my hands dirty today. I have to stay clean. Man number 2 was who? A Levite, also known as a temple assistant. So if he's a temple assistant and he's a Levite, what's his job? Anybody know? He's assisting in the temple, yes. Anything else? He teaches, yes, they teach, Levites teach. And the Levites also, they help set up everything at the temple, right? So we can infer that the Levite was probably late because he should have been there before the priest. Right? You might not see it that way, but just trust me, just follow me on this one. So the Levite was late, because he was supposed to be there and make sure everything was set up, and make sure the mics were out, and make sure the mics, and make sure the lights were on. Yeah, so the Levite was there to set everything up and to make everything good. So he sees the man, I'm sure he felt compassion, but he was like, oh, I see the priest up there, I'm late, so I have to hustle to the other side, and I gotta go, right? So, the priest, why did he not help? He didn't want to get his hands dirty. The Levite, why did he not help? Because he didn't have time. Right? Then the third person was the Samaritan. We've heard lots of messages on the Samaritan, and the idea of being like the Samaritan. The Samaritan was despised, kind of, half Jewish, but kind of not Jewish, and people didn't like the Samaritans. There's other stories about Samaritans. So we realized that Jesus used the Samaritan for a reason, to show, hey, we can all be like the Samaritan. But we're not going to talk about the Samaritan right now, because the reality is that most of us are the priest or the Levite. Yeah. Oh, no. Right? We don't want to hear that, but most of us are, because the reality is that going and doing likewise, like Jesus told us to, go and do the same, is hard. It's really, really hard. And most of us don't want to get our hands dirty. And I don't mean just physically like get dirty. We all get dirty. We all take showers. We do that. Well, sometimes we take showers. But the idea that we don't want to deal with things that aren't normally dealt with in our life. We all live a certain life, and many of us have done certain things in our life to get to a certain place in our life so that our lives are more comfortable. I mean, that's the American way, right? To get to that status and to get to that place. And we are afraid sometimes to get our hands dirty. I know I'm really afraid to get my hands dirty, so I'm not just calling you out, I'm calling myself out. I'll see something going on in the world, and I'll be like, I don't want to get involved. You ever said that before? I don't want to get involved. I know some of our students, they're probably at school, and they see the kid, like in the skit, who has his or her books knocked down, and they just don't want to get involved. I don't want to get involved, because then I'll be labeled as the nerd or the weirdo who's helping that other kid who maybe is a little bit different. Or maybe there's a fight that's starting to happen in school. It's like, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to be a part of that. Or maybe students are making fun of other students, or making fun of the teacher, which don't do, guys. That hurts. Okay, don't make fun of the teacher. But maybe they're engaging in those things, but the students don't want to get involved. They don't want to get their hands dirty. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, we would say the same thing. And then there's the next person. If we like getting our hands dirty and we're good with that, then there's the number. I feel like what the Levite did is just so us 100%, where we just don't have time, right? Time's a commodity. I always say time is money. Has anybody ever said that before? Time is money. I say it all the time. I say, oh, time is money. And I'm always busy. If you see me, I'm always on the go, always running. But we tend to not help others and to not do the things for others because we don't have time. It's a great excuse. Ooh, I don't like that word excuse, but that's what it is. And that's what the Levite was doing. Now, was the Levite going to do something wrong? No, the Levite was going to do great work for God, right? He was going to do great work for God, as was the priest. But the Levite was like, I have time for God, I have time to go to temple, but I don't have time to help this person. Now that gets tricky, right? Because then Jesus tells us we're not supposed to be like that Levite or that priest who didn't have time or didn't want to get his hands dirty. We're supposed to be like the Samaritan who did get his hands dirty, who gave his money, who gave up of his time, gave his money, and got his hands dirty. He had to physically pick the guy up, hands dirty. He had to stop going. He wasn't just going somewhere. If he was going from here to point A to point B, he had somewhere to be too. But he decided to take his time to stop. So he got his hands dirty. He took the time. And that's what Jesus is asking us to do. Every single day. And the beauty of it is, so these kids gave up a weekend. We could applaud them. We should. I mean, they're great, right? Yeah. Great. And because I go to this church, I know you guys give up weekends too, and you give up hours, and you give up days, and I could list all of the wonderful agencies that we support from this church, and we do it all the time. But Jesus, I believe, is asking us for more. And more is hard, more is rough. But I think that Jesus is asking us for more. It's great that you gave up a weekend. Thank you. But he wants you to go home and do it there too. Right? So those of you who help at ministry once a month or more than once a month, yes, Jesus loves that you go to the ministry or that you help out with the Edison project. But Jesus wants more. Jesus wants more. We have the time. We can get our hands dirty. And as Jesus said, be like the Samaritan. Help your neighbor. Go and do likewise.